Hi guys, welcome back. I'm Naha and this is 30 Days of Tarot. You know, we're a little more than halfway through this and I've just been thinking so much about just what an amazing experience this has been already. On one hand, it's been a ton of work and I don't even know how I'm pulling it off. On the other hand, I've had so much support from my subscribers and that's meant so much. And a couple of videos back, I had you guys put down in the comments below where you were from, and it was so eye-opening to me to be able to see, wow, we've got people from every continent, all over the world, all kind of coming together with this shared love of tarot. I thought that that was so special. And on top of all of that, aside from all of the experience of this, is the fact of the opening of these cards themselves, because this is not just like I went out one day and bought 30 decks just to open for this. These are cards that I collected over the period of 2 years, ones that sat on my wish list for so long, ones that I had wanted for much, much longer than 2 years, that I waited for the right time and the right situation and quite frankly to be able to afford. So some of these decks, of course, that I'm opening, the rare ones, they haven't been cheap. But now that I'm opening them, I'm just a little bit in awe to get everything all sort of at once. It's almost like Christmas every day. And I just know it's going to take me another 2 years, if not 10, to actually really be able to absorb everything that I've been opening. But today is no exception. I don't want to waste any more time getting into this very large box. And I'm really, really looking forward to seeing this, because this is something that I was a long time, not only for me getting it, but it was just this deck has such an interesting backstory. So this is called the Sacred India Tarot, and it's actually come from its publisher, Yogi Impressions, and they are based in Mumbai. I actually had an opportunity to spend a month in India. It's probably been at least like 12 years now. But while I was there, I had an apartment in Mumbai for about a month. So I am kind of familiar with that part of the world. And this deck is no longer in print, but you still can get copies of it. And like I said, they are not cheap. And I'll leave the information down below just in case you are interested in this. Okay, so far this plain unmarked box. And the reason that I even know about this deck is because it just so happens that it's created by an artist who I had been following her blog, her WordPress blog, for years. And while doing that, I never knew that this woman had put out a tarot deck. I know that seems strange, but this deck was made in 2012, and I started following this woman in probably like 2014. And I guess by then, the posts about the deck, she'd already like moved on from that. And this is a woman, her name's Jane Addams. And she's an amazing artist that works in all different kinds of mediums. And she's also an amazing writer. And she just does these really, really in-depth blog entries in which she includes her artwork that spans her whole body of work. So she'll put in recent drawings and paintings from 10 years ago and oil pastels from another decade and even things that she drew as a child. And she just weaves it all into this story. And she includes a lot of imagery from Kabbalah, Western mystery tradition, as well as Eastern stuff, and really kind of a broad, rich tapestry of esoteric things across the board. So this deck is a collaboration between her and an Indian writer named Rohit Arya. And it wasn't until, like I said, years after I'd been following this woman, I get her notifications all the time, that one day I realized, I don't know, remember exactly how I found it, that she'd made a tarot deck. And I was just like, wow, I love this woman's work so much. I got to get this deck. So I hunted it out for a while. I finally ended up biting the bullet and paying the big money for it. And the more that I found out about this deck, the more excited that I'm getting. This is obviously the back of the box, because as it turns out, it's just so much more than a deck. Now, I didn't read how exactly this writer and this artist came together, but I do know that this deck was 9 years in the making. Can you imagine? For 9 years, they went back and forth discussing the imagery of the cards. And all of that is documented, not on her blog, but on the writer's blog. And I'll leave all this information down below, where you can see the correspondence back and forth between the artist and the writer, where he would say, we've got to have the images look like this. And I mean, we just got to start looking at these cards before we go any further. So you can see the Sacred India Tarot, inspired by Indian mythology and epics. It says on the back here, it's got 78 cards plus 4 bonus cards. And it's unique in its synthesis of 2 mystical meditation streams of culture, the tarot and Indian mythology, which are 2 things that we don't see a lot of crossover. Yet what this artist and writer found was that these 2 things actually ended up blending amazingly well. And why wouldn't they? The archetypes of the tarot are universal. Sure, there might be classic interpretations and maybe more European or more Western sort of ways that those archetypes are expressed, but mythologies and religions, they're comparative. And who you call Osiris in one culture, you might call Rama in another. And I'm not surprised at all that you could overlay the gods and goddesses over the tarot, but I do think that it takes somebody really knowledgeable to do it right. And that's what I think we've got here. So already you can see the beautiful box, and it looks like this is probably one of those, magnetic boxes. It's just really, really nice quality. It's got like a texture to it. The entire thing is a work of art, as you can see, and there is a really extensive book that this comes with. And in this book, as Jane describes on her website, Rohit has presented with great clarity India's ancient mythological and esoteric matrix, with insights on yoga, meditation, and many pages of practical guidance on using the deck. And now that I've taken out the book, I want to show you guys what else we have here. Here is a little card, and this is Dattatreya, encompassing the trinity of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Then we see the actual deck, and this is a unique thing. Even though this deck comes in this amazing packaging, it still has another box on the inside, so you could just take it, and if you wanted to keep it in the box, usually it's just one or the other. You have this big box and the cards are kind of loose, sort of sitting in there, or you have this. And once we've taken the deck out, then we can see this image here of Babaji, the Ascended Master and Guru, the avatar said to reincarnate again and again and be a master for many. So as I said, this deck coming with 4 extra cards, and here's the first one. It's the Blessings of Ganesha. You know who he is, right? The elephant god, the road opener. And whenever I was in India, all of the taxis, all of the cars, and the little 3-wheel carts that they drive have a little decal of Ganesh right on the top of the windshield just to open up the roads. And the very next card that we see would be the Fool, but here it's called the Wild card. And the reason why they chose to call it the Wild card is because this is a representation of Shiva, and they didn't feel it would be appropriate to call Shiva the Fool. But we see him there with his fool-like imagery, but he has 4 dogs. And what I saw when I started looking at some of the correspondence that went back and forth between the artist, I think that's Vishnu, the magician. And so what I saw in the correspondence was just that the writer would first begin with just the most in-depth detail about every little thing, what the musculature of the person should look like, what should Ganesh's trunk be turned to the left or to the right, what implements should they be holding. Wow, so beautiful, the Empress. And then this is the back of the cards. This is called the Sri Yantra. You guys recognize that symbol? And I want to read to you a little bit about what Jane shared about this deck. She says, Rohit has an unusual and remarkable gift to truly blend the East and the West, the Vedic culture with Jungian insight. From the watershed or source, all continents and cultures flow. The word is integration, and it is timeless. This deck is a reminder within India's current technological scale and vitality of her immense spiritual landscape, and not to neglect the informed understanding. I love that one, Justice. The stories, epics, and imagery it contains nourish the inner and outer life and help us realize our goals and face our problems in any medium or relationship. The subconscious responds to images, to the language in pictures, and this the rishis knew. The rishis were the Vedic sages of the elder Sarasvati Indus Arya culture. They were family men, and they sat with the trees and heard the cosmic law, its quanta, phenomena, and orbitings within themselves. Sanskrit is their hieroglyphic language, a script of living pictures. A rishi is a river. The Himalaya rivers are rishis. The Ganges River flows in a deep, dark gorge from the almost impenetrable Nanda Devi sanctuary. In the ancient world, the rishis conversed freely with other great river cultures. Egypt, for wisdom is at its root. Whoa, that guy's intense. The devil. Ooh. The lotus becomes in the west the lily and the rose. The sun rises as a lotus and sets as a rose. Tarot, an anagram of the law, may have derived from the blending of these two cultures. There we see the star. And Rohit writes about this tarot. While designing the structure of the Sacred India Tarot, it was surprising, but no longer is, to note how naturally the gods and myths of Indian culture fitted into the original tarot structure. This highlighted the universality of the tarot spiritual system and led to a deeper insight about its personages. They are what we call devas in India. The word deva literally means shining one. They are embodiments of light, the physical symbol of spiritual energy. The Fool, the Magician, the Empress, the Queen of Wands, to take 4 representative examples. There's Babaji again. Oh, this is one of the other 4 cards, and I missed it in here, but I know that there's also 2 world cards. So once in a while you have these tarot decks where they have an alternate card. So these are 2 different world cards. I guess you can kind of opt for which one you want to use. And there are also 2 death cards. It looks like that one's Kali, right? And then we see this green guy riding on the sacred cow. I want to find out who he is. I'm going to go ahead and look at this. Oh, you know what? We saw this guy when I opened up the Chinese tarot. It's the same figure that was in that deck for the death card. This is Yama. Yama, the god of death, is also a moral and ethical exemplar. He was the first man and mankind's first hero, ascending to divine status because he was not afraid to learn the riddle of death by dying. And it goes quite into depth here, all about this story. One of the things that Jane had said is that you don't read these cards upright and reversed. You read them rather in light or in shadow. And if you get this card in light, it is a powerful gateway of transformation, new opportunities for transformation, karmic transition, not personal extinction. Do not fear. And if you get this in shadow, it leads to feelings of incompleteness, irresolution, isolation, unresolved feelings towards situations and things. And then there's an insight to the card. All things come to an end, no exceptions. You can become a new person, an opportunity which arrives infrequently in life. Let go and let God do the rest. And these cards are on a different kind of paper than I am really used to feeling in most decks. They're definitely thicker than your standard cards. They almost feel like they're kind of like a cardboard. There's the 4. Aren't these really beautiful, you guys? I just think that her artwork it just comes from another place. And there's a certain amount of just warmth in these, but also there's a certain amount of depth. And you know that they have just been so intentional in every single little detail here. No symbol was left unturned. That's a beautiful 9 of Pentacles. So I definitely think that to get the most out of this deck, I would have to sit and read the book and really explore the stories, which is something that I would love to learn more about anyway, is the Indian culture and their mythology and gods and goddesses. So this is really something that I'm looking forward to spending some more time with. And let me try holding up a few of the cards together, because sometimes you need to see how they all kind of look in a spread together to really get the idea of the imagery. So there you can see just each one, again, being an absolute work of art on its own. Look at that. Isn't that great? So I really encourage you guys to go ahead and check out Jane Addams' artwork. Read her blog. She will totally inspire you. And she works with all different esoteric things. She has I Ching on her website. And right now she's working with something called the Gene Keys. I don't exactly understand how it works. It feels like it's a little bit like kind of a life mapping, sort of like a path working, and it takes into account your whole life. So she's blogging her way through that. Now, the Suit of Cups is called the Suit of Lotuses. So here we see the Queen of Lotuses. Love her. Right by the House of Intuition, there is a park. It's called Echo Park, and there's a beautiful lake there, and the lake has lotuses growing in it. And they actually had the lake shut down for a lot of years, and during that time they had to drain it, and they had closed off the park, and the lotuses were no longer living. Like, the lake had gotten really gross. And so the city went in and they went to restore the lake, but they didn't have the lotuses anymore. And a man ended up coming forward who actually had taken clippings back in the original lake when the lotuses were growing, and he'd kind of like snuck them out of the park and then propagated them himself. And then he came forward and he said, I actually have the cuttings of the original lotuses, and he brought them back and completely repopulated the lake, and now there's just tons of gorgeous lotuses growing on it. And you know, what the lotus represents is the ascent to source, back to the divine, and very much the journey from darkness to light, because the lotus starts off down in the muck, in the mud. Oh, this guy's so cool. This is the Suit of Staves or Wands. So it starts out underwater, down in this muddy water, and it has to kind of rise up through the different levels of the water until it finally breaks the surface, and then it opens in that beautiful flower. I really don't feel like I'm doing these cards that much of a service by just going through them so quickly, but I think that you guys get the idea. This would be this last Suit of Arrows is what the Suit of Swords is here. But I hope that you guys have enjoyed this look at the Sacred India Tarot. As I said, it is out of print, but you still can get it. I will leave that link down below, but I warn you, it's not cheap. And at least you're buying it from the publisher and you're not getting it from somebody who's marked it up all crazy. This deck isn't going to be for everybody, but if you have any kind of interest in Indian culture and mythology, I think that you might really love this. And even if you aren't into this deck, I still encourage you to take a look at Jane Addams' website and see how much amazing stuff she's doing over there. So thank you guys again for being here. And if you'd like to leave a like, subscribe, I would appreciate that so much. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.